everyone. So I'm going to try this again. Take 2 of Ask Me Monday, number 33. I'm Vickie Howell. I realized that I still have my Wi-Fi off from being at the airport last night. If you were one of the 3 viewers that turned in the first time I tried to do this a few minutes ago, I just got back late last night from Vogue Knitting Live. So racing in, but really happy to be here, hanging out with you guys. I actually really wish that some of my regulars could have been at the fashion show that I did for We Garter Stitch. It was pretty hilarious and a ton of fun. It was all kids, obviously, and most of them I was either related to, knew, or were friends of friends, or I guess all of them were. But you never know what you're gonna get when you work with kids. So we had a handful, and because I didn't have a ton of babies that I knew, we had to use bigger kids too and get creative about it. So like my nephew, I have a 5-year-old nephew, Jacob, we call him Yosh though, because Jacob Yoshio. He is 5, so he clearly can't wear anything, but we had him do all the blankets, so we would have him come out wrapped in them. And he was a good sport, but sometimes his face was just like this, which really sells it. I was just like, you can see how much kids delight in these blankets. And I had a bubble machine. My big brilliant idea was well, how am I going to get these kids who are not professional models to get from one end of the runway to the other? They'll have their moms with them, but without hiding behind their legs. So we decided to get this industrial bubble machine, and we put that at the end of the runway, and it was a huge mess. They had to lay all this plastic down, and there was bubble gate, whether or not we were gonna have to pay for the stage, and all this stuff happened. But it totally worked. The kids were super into it, and sometimes they would just let go of the knitwear, and their moms would have to pick it up and hold it while they were just playing in bubbles. It was awesome. But maybe my favorite moment of it, well, there was this little girl named Karina. She was 3 months old, 4 months old, and she worked hard, man, because she was my only little girl, little girl. And so she was in and out every time and just googly and smiley and so cute. And then, but my favorite moment was one of my best girlfriends, Sasha, who I've known since I was 9. And as a side note, we used to play hardcore Cabbage Patch Kids. We made apartments in our rooms. We had our moms babysit if we went out. We put on little plays with them. We were core, right? So, 30 years later or whatever, to have her come and have her kids be in this show was pretty special. But her little one, Mako, he's a year and a half, almost a year and a half. Oh no, a year and a half. He was not having any of it, of putting on one of the hats, an ear flap hat. I mean, kids don't dig hats. It's just how it is. And, but the music's going, I'm out there announcing, and my girl's going to have my back, So she comes out and she's got kid in tow, kind of dragging him a little bit. I mean, he wasn't upset or anything. He just wasn't wearing the hat. And she went to the end of the runway, and she just took the hat and just stood there with it. Proud, just holding her hand and holding the hat. And it was so awesome. So it was really fun. I think that people dug it. I wish that I had actually had somebody video it. I am surprised at myself that I didn't think of that. I should have streamed it live. That was a fail. But hopefully some of the photographers took pictures, and I can share those. I can share those with you. Before I move on, Tammy's asking a question. Love what's behind me on the hanger. What is it? This is actually a prototype. I'm going to end up doing it in a different yarn. Oh, I have the yarn here. This is a wrap for a kit that I'm going to be putting out in the fall through Interweave. That was just a sample. I'm actually going to be doing it in Crazy Zarabal. There'll be 3 different colorways, so I need to remake it. But that's what that is. That should be out, I don't know, maybe the September range area on Interweave. So I'll make sure and let you know about that. So the other thing at Vogue Knitting Live, what else? Oh, so I did a screening. I hosted a screening of Yarn the Movie, but right before that, it was Stephen B. Showing an episode of his show, his reality show. I think it's StephenBTV.com is where you can find it. And it was hilarious because it's Stephen, and, he's so entertaining, and he's such a sweet person too. So that was fun. So we did that, and then we did the screening for the movie from my now friends out of Iceland who are the co-directors of the movie. So that was really fun. And then I got to spend some time with just some cool people. I got to hang out with Franklin Habit, which was great, and Carol Sokolsky. Melissa Leitman, Patty Lyons, Brooke Nico, Sally Melville. Sally was a guest on Nitty Gritty. So actually, so was Melissa years ago. Patty's been on Knitting Daily. So it's super fun to get to meet people. I finally got to meet Twinkie Chan, who I had no idea, but she's almost my age. Like I would have guessed she was like a decade younger. She's adorable. But anyway, so that was really awesome to meet them. So it was just good vibes. It was good feeling. Oh, the other really cool thing that happened was at the cocktail party that they have there, there was a keynote speaker. And the cool thing was, well, there was a lot of cool things. I'm always amazed at how how the Vogue people find these amazing knitters. But their speaker was Sayeda Garrett, and she is actually the co-writer for Man in the Mirror for Michael Jackson. So she's a songwriter, Grammy Award winning, just kind of amazing person all the way around, right? But she's also this really prolific crocheter and knitter. And dudes, the stuff that she makes shames some of us professional designers. Like, it is good. It is good. And so she was telling us some great stories about, you know, like a bodice that she knit for Madonna, and how she knit while she was on tour with, you know, different amazing artists. And she had her costume person who was also a knitter and a crocheter. And she just talked about what it meant in her life. And then she, you know, sang some of Man in the Mirror with us. And it was super cool. But what was amazing was that after the show, all of a sudden I hear, "Vickie Howell!" And she ran up to me and said she wanted to meet me. And it was so awesome. It was like such an awesome moment, because I just love when creative paths, you know, when they cross like that. And she just said some really nice things to me. And I was like, well, you know, you're a Grammy Award winner. You don't, like, thank you, but no, really, yeah, you're amazing. And my point being is we ended up having a drink after, and she agreed to come on Craftish. So I hope you're listening to my podcast, Craftish. You can find it on iTunes or SoundCloud or through my website, VickieHowell.com, or really any place you find them. So, you know, hopefully soon she will be a guest. We're going to work on that. So I think that's mostly all I have to say about Vogue Knitting Live. It was fun. We're cooking up something really fun for the Minneapolis show, which will be in November. So if any of you couldn't make this one, maybe you can make that one. So we had a question, and I should have had this prepared, who this was for. And I've had it a couple weeks, and she's asked it a couple weeks, and I have not addressed it. So I wanted to make sure and do it this time. And it was about picking up stitches. Oh, wait, Tony Imwald. She, and I think it's the same person that's asked before. She wanted to know about how to pick up and knit stitches. She says that she gets holes sometimes, and she just wanted to see how to do that. So I thought that I would do a demo of picking up stitches on both the bound off or cast on or bound off edges and along the side. It's pretty much the same thing, but I'm going to show you anyway. Knitted by Macho Man. When am I coming to Europe? I am trying so hard. I'm actually looking for someone to sponsor a trip for me to go to the UK for. There's a cool like fiber festival this fall that I would love to go to. I have never been to the UK, and I would really, really love that. I think knitting and crochet are really hot there. The same resurgence that we had in like 2006 here, I think is happening there, and I want to be a part of it. So hopefully that will happen soon. Just stay tuned. Okay, I'm going to turn you around. As always, it will not be all that pretty because I'm working on a phone, and show you how to pick up stitches. Okay? All right, let me first make sure that you guys have plenty of light. I'm going to lower this a little bit. My husband got me this great tripod last week, and so I'm no longer having to, you know, balance things on books and whatnot. Okay, you know, I'm going to push this up a little bit. Bring this in. So I'm going to talk to you while I'm moving lights. So I'm going to talk to you about picking up stitches. I just ran home and I worked up this swatch really quickly. And it's out of this yarn called Kensington by Haiku. Have you seen it? I can't like really do the color justice. It's like this amazing color of purple, but it also, and it's chain construction, but it also has like tweed flex, which I just learned during the trivia session at Vogue Knitting Live from, I think I learned this from Carol, who wrote the book Knitting Ephemera, that those are called nubs. Isn't that so cool? Anyways, I'm going to be working on a kit that's going to come out in the fall out of this too. So I was playing around with it. So I worked up a swatch, just a plain stockinette swatch, and I'm going to show you how to pick up stitches now. I see that we have some crocheters too. Just so you know, I do crochet on this stream too. We're just doing a knitting technique this time. I actually do a lot of crochet. Okay, so let's say that we're going to be picking up on the bound off or cast on row. Well, that's easier, right? Because the stitches are already there. You can see, all right, it's obvious that these are all like, here's a stitch and here's a stitch. I think I have this upside down. You can see the individual rows, right? Already. So that makes it pretty easy. But some of you might have noticed that you're getting holes when you're trying to pick up stitches. And I'm guessing that that might be because you're only picking up through one loop. I really recommend going under both loops of the stitch. I'm just going to arbitrarily pick one. So like for your crocheters out there, you know how you'd work under the loops whenever you're crocheting a stitch? Same idea here. You're going to go through both of those loops. And then you're going to yarn over, wrap the yarn around, and just kind of pull it through. And that's one stitch picked up. And this is what they call picking up and knitting, rather than just picking up stitches, which would be if you were picking them up off of a holder or waste yarn or whatever. All right, so then you'd go to the next one. Insert, yarn over, pull through. Next one, insert, yarn over, pull through. And you would just do that for as many of the stitches that you that it's called for, or all the way across the band or the edge or whatever. So that's how you do it across the top or the bottom of a piece. So if you were working along the side, what you might do if you were creating a button band, or there's some cool projects I've seen lately where you work part of the project vertically and then you flip it over and then you work horizontally, or I guess it would be perpendicular to the other piece. So the rows are different lengths than the stitches, individual stitches. So you're not going to pick up a stitch for every row, because what will happen is you'll get too many stitches and your piece will flare out like this. Normally, like a pattern will just say pick up evenly, so you kind of just have to do a hope and a prayer that you can figure it out. You could actually do the math and figure out the row gauge and the stitch gauge and make sure that you're picking up X amount of stitches per rows because of that gauge. I have to be honest with you, I almost never do that. I more eye it. So what I usually do is I'm going to go underneath, again, both the loops that are created from the row, and pull through. But then this one, you know, is a little smaller. It's funny. You'll notice that on rows, if you look at the row of any stockinette piece, you'll notice that you have these smaller stitches and bigger ones. There's probably a fancy answer for why that is. I do not have it. I always skip those. But in general, what I would say is that my general rule is that every 2 or 3 stitches, I'll skip one. So I'm going to skip that right there. Skip that one and go to this one. And that generally works out pretty well so that it'll be even. For those of you that are getting holes, I'm guessing that what you're doing, so that gives you a nice sturdy seam too. It will really help for wear and tear if you've got a little bit of a seam. And what that does is the first loop, so you're picking up the stitch, but you're also creating really kind of a selvage edge, right? Whereas if you were just to pick up the back loop, that pulls at it oddly, and that's going to create holes. Same with if you just pick up the front loop. it creates holes. So I recommend going through under both. All right, I'm not as happy with the lighting as I normally, but hopefully you got the idea. Hopefully everybody is on board with that. So if you think that anybody would be interested in that tutorial, please forward this. Oh, and some people have said that they haven't been getting the alerts for this feed. I think that there's a thing that you can click live subscribe right now at the screen. I don't see it, but I'm pretty sure that it's there, that you see it. So make sure you do that. But you can also go to my Facebook page, and up at the very top where the header is or whatever, you need to make sure that you click follow all posts or whatever. There's a drop down menu, and then you'll get alerts there too. So there was a couple more questions that didn't involve demonstrations that I wanted to address. Artspace Essex says, how do community art craft groups encourage busy people, mom, working women, etc., to come out to group crafting days and be creative socially in person? This is a tough one. It's tough because just going anywhere is hard when you're busy. It's so hard, you know, but it's really important that we get out and really sort of delve into our physical community. Obviously, I'm a big proponent of the virtual community. It's where I live, but there's such a huge benefit to physically being in the same space as people, supporting your local yarn stores, and also just supporting each other by physically being in the same space. So what I recommend, well, first of all, offer wine. Pro tip. If you have wine or mimosas or like craft beers or something like that, so that it becomes more of like an event, like a party. For those of you that don't drink, no disrespect, you could also have fancy waters and that kind of thing. Make it sort of an event. I also really encourage people to schedule their craft time on a calendar. If it's on a calendar, you're more likely to go to it than just like, oh, I usually go to this, or maybe I'll go to this. I know they have it every day. If you say Tuesday night or the first Tuesday of every month is my craft time with my friends or whatever, you're more likely to commit to it and stay with it. So yarn store owners or craft space owners, I encourage you to encourage people to do that and give them incentives, you know, time, you know, incentives. And that can be little swags. That can be a discount to places. That can be, you know, points earned towards something just for showing up. Sometimes I need points just for showing up, you know, just ways of encouraging them. So hopefully that is something that will be helpful. So Knitted by Macho Man wants to say, how can knitters encourage more men to knit worldwide? You know, it's funny. I just saw something on BuzzFeed, I might be misquoting, that said there's like a million, it was like men 1 million strong of knitters or whatever, but you don't see them that often. And so what I think it is, I think the way that we get more men knitting is by talking about it, especially men talking about it as much as you can, destigmatizing it. I mean, back in the day, there were way more male knitters, like knitting industry or knitting guilds were all male driven. It wasn't until after the Industrial Revolution that things changed. So, or actually reverse that. The Industrial Revolution changed a lot of things because men were behind knitting machines. So this is another trivia fact I just learned. There used to be a all knitting fraternity for men at one of the Ivy League schools. I think it was Columbia. So men have been knitters for just as long, if not longer. We just need to encourage it more. So I just think talk about it. I personally try to, you know, promote and give business whenever I can to men. And honestly, the irony is, though, that men who are in the business tend to have more followings and do better just because, I don't know, they're like a diamond in the rough or whatever. So just keep knitting. That's all I can say. Karen Robbins wants to know if I know how to do Latvian knitting or know somebody who knows how to do it. I've done the Latvian braid a couple times on some mittens. I think Tanis Gray has a few projects, at least a couple projects using that method. And you can find her, just Google Tanis Gray or find her through Ravelry. That's where I would look. So, and Melissa wanted to know if I'd tried loom knitting. She got a sock loom for Christmas. Yes, and in fact, an Ask Me Monday from a few weeks ago, and I'll try to repost the link, I actually showed how to use it for making a sock. But speaking of, just so you know, if you don't watch these live, you could actually binge watch live feeds or not so live feeds. I have an Ask Me Monday playlist under the Facebook, on my Facebook page, which is facebook.com/Vickie Howell. If you just click on the videos tab, you can see the Ask Me Monday playlist, and you can watch. There's been this is the 33rd one, so there's plenty of info there, so please check that out. All right, let me do a quick scroll through and see if there's anything else, any hot burning questions before I sign off for the day. I think I answered that one. River wants to know what my tat says. It is a paraphrasing of a Pema Chodron, she's a Buddhist nun, quote from a chapter from a book called, I think it's called When Things Fall Apart. It says, every day when things get edgy, we can choose either to practice peace or go to war. Peace is freedom. It's just a little reminder to me to not go in fighting all the time, to go in with a calm. It actually really helps. Then you don't perpetuate your own crazy. So there you go, a little bit about me. All right, I think that's all we've got today. So thank you so much for being here. Please tune in next week for another issue of Ask Me Monday. Tomorrow is the next episode of Craftish, my podcast. We are going to be featuring Moogly's Tamara Kelly. So for all you crocheters out there, be sure to tune into that. We had a really nice conversation. And if you want to learn more skills like picking up and knitting stitches like I showed you today, please check out my Creative Live class. It's called Knit Maker Skills and Techniques, and through May 31st, you can get a 25% discount by using the code Vickie25, and I'll post that in the show notes for this show. As always, follow me on Instagram at Vickie Howell or anywhere on social media, and if you have any other questions, post them next week. Until then, breathe in, craft out. Bye.